Hi everyone, welcome to this session. It's about managing workplace conflict. Preethi is an engineering leader. She's also a certified coach at Intuit and has over like 23 years of experience in software business. Preethi's career includes like enterprise, cloud solution, real-time streaming, database design, and big data products. She has built various tech communities like Hexagon UX and Lean In communities. She's also the founder and regional leader in Lean In Network, Women in Tech India, one of the fastest growing women in tech networks. Around 4,500 people are already part of it. And she has also received this Lean In People First Award in 2018. Uh, Her LinkedIn profile, I was just browsing yesterday and I could see a Stephen Hawking quote that says, "Intelligence is the ability to adapt to change." Wow, it speaks volumes about her beliefs and about her beliefs to create sustainable transformation and supporting the change. Preeti has positive and energetic style, which is a reflection of her passion for growing the ambitious leaders. So, thank you, Preeti, for joining our session, and over to you.
Thank you, Dipti, and thanks for the warm welcome. I must say, I'm always excited about Women Who Code Connect India because it brings in a lot of energy for me, and it's the place where I feel I can learn so much from all the sessions that you have scheduled, and also an opportunity to share my experience with all of you and network. Before I move on to, I'm sure all of you are eager to unfold managing workplace conflict, but I also wanted to, talk a little bit about what does Women Who Code Connect mean to me, right? I mean, one of the things that my mom actually, brought in this value for me is, and she said this, pretty, you can earn a lot, you can become the CEO of some company, or you can be the best version of you. But I think one thing that will always stay with you is your knowledge. Now, this knowledge that you gain through your experience of life or through your learning is useless if you don't share it. Because the more you share, the more you learn. And these two have become an integral part and the value of and what has made me today, right? As she taught these two, and as my experience grew, be it professionally as I grew up and learned from the life, I think one of the most important factor that becomes the critical and the importance of it is the network, which brings energy in me when I'm in the network, while I share, and when I'm in the network, when I learn. And that's the connection that I have with Women Who Code Connect India. It brings in all these three values that I've always uh, been and what I am today. With that connection that we have, I'm going to get started with today's session, which you all are looking forward for. That is managing conflicts at workplace. This is one of the topic which is very close to my heart, and it's one of the greatest learning that I have had in my career. And I've learned different techniques, and I've shared various other techniques that I have been right. So managing conflicts at workplace. I know Dipti gave a wonderful introduction about me, but is a little bit more about me, and I will talk through that. Is like, as I said, what's made me today is the learn, share, and the network. That's the crux of who I am. Being an engineering leader for 23 years is actually given me an immense knowledge to learn different domains, lead a team, and do a lot of things. But also, the network has brought in a key skill in me about being a speaker. I speak internationally on various topics like leadership, diversity, and inclusion, and technical topics, be it AI, ML, emerging technology, or things. I believe in learning and sharing, right? This led to me, as I said, to build a network, which I'm extremely proud. We have like 4,500 followers across social media from the last 7 years that we have built. And it's one of the community that has sustained and left even today successfully, which is completely volunteer driven. And that makes it proud. And the best part is, among the 5 countries out of 44 countries under Lean In, Women in Tech India is the one of the 5 communities which won the award in People First category for people. It makes it very special for me because the award was for people, and that's where the value lies in. And I'm also, as I said, the pandemic brought me into a different stage about when we all hit pandemic. I'm sure all of us hit is a stage about where is networking lost at that point of time. During this, as I said, skill building is one of the things, and I built my skill on coaching and I got certified. And today I coach leaders for career transformation, leadership skills, productivity skills, or various other topics on leadership. I also mentor startups and coach mentor entrepreneurs, which has helped me to gain 800 hours of coaching. And the fact that I was talking about, hey, where did the networking lost in pandemic? I started something called as, Preethi Anubhava Chakra in LinkedIn, which is very specifically on LinkedIn that is there, which is hashtag Preethi Anubhava Chakra, which is basically speaking about my experience and network with people so that I'm still connected. I can share, I still can learn from all of you. So here are some links that you can always connect with me. And as I said, I have given various topics on leadership and conflict management, jumping to the conflict management or managing conflict at workplace. This is one of the key competency for any leaders, apart from being empathetic, resilient, team building, every aspect of competencies that the leader has. Conflict management is one of the key competencies. But conflict management, it just doesn't stay with leaders. It is for everybody, for every level. And before, I can talk to you about what is conflict management, I will take a pause here and, hear from you all, right? When you hear the word conflict management, what does it come on your mind? Can I see some, if you could put on your chat window, the moment you hear conflict management, what is conflict management? What does it come on your mind? Can some of you put on it? Difference of opinion. Thank you, Shrishti. Anything else? I would like to have this session quite interactive. There are pauses that I'll be taking for you to help you learn this and help me learn from you. Yes, ego issues to come up to a common standpoint when there are differences within the team. Yes, Bhavya. Lack of win-win situation. Yes. Interest areas of difference. Matching wavelength with diverse people. So, all the points that you said, difference of opinion, ego issues, right, matching wavelength with diverse people is nothing but conflict and not conflict management. Yes, you heard me right. All the things that you said is a conflict versus a conflict management. Conflict management, on the other hand, is basically a set of technique that is required to identify the conflict, resolve the conflict in workplace. As I said, conflict is a normal part of everyday life for us, right? Be it workplace or personal life, right? The most, if you have to demystify the goal of conflict management, right? It goes this way, right? The goal of conflict management is to detect the conflict. The conflict, if that is an ego issue, detect the conflict. if there is lack of listening skills that is leading to a conflict, right? Is it the difference of opinion? Is the conflict? Now, it is also important we minimize the negative effect that is coming out of conflict rather than eliminating the conflict, right? And while the goal is very clear is to identify the conflict and reduce the effects, negative effects of the conflict to not to eliminate, but rather to manage the conflict, right? How would you achieve this? The fact that how comes into is you move into a process of this conflict management where that can be collaborative and effective and can lead to productivity. Conflict management is also the way you handle conflict with fairness and efficiency. In doing so, you can avoid poor communication with your colleagues, decrease the tension that is there at workplace, bring your whole self to work. Also, keep your morale as well as your peer and employees' morale high. Now, while we understand now conflict management and conflict, basically conflict management is a tool to manage the conflict. The moment you hear the conflict management, what is your feeling? Can we put in your feelings that comes as soon as you hear uh, the conflict? Tension, discomfort, fear, avoid, stress, fear of retaliation, not being included. Perfect. All these are the integral part. And the conflict management, as I said, is to learn to manage this conflict, to avoid stress, to manage your stress, to manage your emotions that you will learn through this session, right? The as so now that's all about conflict. Now, what are you going to learn today in the session is what is conflict management? Are we talking through the different strategy and a well-known model of conflict management? And one of the strategies that I really learned and apply every day in my life, which brings into what we will learn about conflict management here today, right? Another part that you're going to learn today is also managing your energy during these conflict management, right? And that's where I was talking about the feelings of discomfort, the feeling of tension, the feeling of fear of retaliation, just the thought of fear, right? Hey, I mean, do I have to, I mean, is this all happening only with me? That thing. And one of the most difficult conflict that you go through in life, and which is not something that you focus, is conflict with self, right? And you would learn about and also will work on when and how to let go this conflict with self, right? That's something that we will learn through this topic today, right? As we speak through conflict management, right, some of the reasons for conflict that comes in is because of your communication and ownership and the assumption which doesn't get clarified. And what requires for conflict resolution is empathy and active listening. Most importantly, managing your emotions and energy. Now, before we go on, let's look at some of the skills that's required for the conflict management. Uh, what do you think? What are the skills that are required for the conflict management that is there? Maybe quickly, if you guys can put it on the window, chat window. EQ, very good, Shrishti. Emotional stability, yes. Stay calm and empathy, absolutely. So these are some of the skills that is important. And the most important skill that you know is a technique of meditation that you know you need to learn as well. Facilitation, open communication, verbal or non-verbal, right? Avoiding criticism, taking responsibility, stress management, all of them. So we'll quickly, with these skills required. So, you know, in the next few minutes, I'll be talking about the different model and the steps of how do we manage these conflicts and how each of the skills that you're seeing gets applied in this. Right. One of the well-known model is Thomas and Kilman's conflict model. I think Thomas and Kilman put this model, and this is one of the model that I learned during my coaching, and when I applied in my life, and you know when I reflected back to the conflicts that I faced, was this. Now you know I'll give you an example that yesterday you know I while I had to share these slides with Dipti, while I had to prepare for the session for today, right, I ended up being in a very serious conflict at work where, you know, we were basically called on for a critical meeting without any indication. And we were said, given a date, give an estimate. We are launching on a particular date next week. Can you give you an estimate? Right, there's a lot of history that is there that went into that conflict, and what was important is to understand that history of the conflict and you know go through when there is conflict is happening. You as a leader, your team looks forward for you, right? And your senior leadership as well look forward for you. That brings you into a stressful situation. But there are two important styles that Thomas and Kilman put into this conflict model. One is assertiveness and one is cooperativeness. Now, what is this assertiveness and cooperativeness? One of the best places that when you are high at assertive and high at cooperative that you need to be is that's when you know collaborative is there. Coming together to develop a mutual benefit situation. That's a win-win for all of us is where the collaborative situation would come in. When you're generally low on your assertiveness and low on cooperative, that is where you step back and you know you just avoid conflict. When you're very high assertive, you are not listening to the other story, other's point of view. You focus on getting your perspective done, which also leads to the conflict, right? When there is this point of compromising that comes, it is basically a path where you go from collaborative to compromising is in the middle state. It's also not a it's also a good state for you to be in, right? Because it allows you to be in acceptable situation, and it can be a win and lose situation for you and win and lose situation for the other party as well, right? But it is still a situation that would the best possible situation is collaborative. All right. And now what we will learn is having the high assertiveness, having the collaborativeness, right? While there would be much easier to solve conflicts, especially when you have conflicts with your manager, with your peer, because it's one-to-one, but sometimes these conversation can be high stakes, and that's where you lead into another conversation that's called as crucial conversation. Now, for crucial conversation, what becomes important is you need to start with your heart, right? And what we will learn is how you could apply all the skills that you learned, you just said in the crucial conversation. Right, the crucial conversation, it's a great book. I have this book handy, and at the end of the session I'll share some of these books that I the crucial conversation model. It's a book that's handy. You can always look into different pages whenever you need to go through different situation. It talks about, and every time I read a new story. Now let's look at all the skills that we heard. How do we put into our practice in the crucial conversation that we have? So what's crucial conversation? Crucial conversation is an opposing opinions, right? And when there are strong emotions and the stakes are high, and that's where your conversation becomes crucial. Generally what happens is as we all see, we take into a two mode. One is a fight and one is a flight, right? And when you look at a dialogue, right, that comes in the center. Now, what happens is most of the time we are when you're in the fight mode is when you're in the high assertive mode, and when you're in the quiet mode, it's when you're in the more less collaborative mode, or more collaborative mode, which is the most accommodative mode if you look to the Thomas and Kilman's model, which I showed you. But where you need to get into is the dialogue, a free flow dialogue where you can share your opinion, right? And you need to focus on what you really want and not get attached to the person when there is a conflict, but look at the problem. How can you look at the problem, right? And it actually leads to something called as CPR, and the CPR is the content, and P is the process, and R is the relationship. So, what do you really want for yourself? What do you really want for others? And what do you really want with your relationship? And this is where you re engage your brains so that you don't get attached to the person in the in the conflict management, but you get to know what is the problem. That is where you very important that you answer these three questions, right? And it most importantly, how do you get into a dialogue? Clarifying what you really want, considering and listening to what other person is, being empathetic to listen, right? And most importantly, asking for help when needed, either from your leadership, peers, or whomever it is, right? So that becomes important. Learn to look. This is very important, and create a very safety environment. Psychological safety is the most important thing that you need to have, and to do that you must be self-aware, and that's where self-monitoring comes into picture, right? The most important part of the whole crucial conversation is how much you are self-aware, right? Physically, emotionally, and behaviorally. You need to look at all these three aspects. It's like every time either people become defensive, that's where you get into the highest assertive mode, or you become quiet without avoiding it. That's where you're at a high collaborative mode. Okay, I will go by what others says versus not voicing out your opinion. So you will have to look out, watch out for all these signs, right? How are you? And sometimes when you think that you're silent and you're not conveying anything, you will be conveying through your body language. That's where a non-verbal communication comes into picture, right? uh, Again, emotions play a very critical role, right? Most of the time, right, you get into three of these things, right? Whether you become a victim, whether that's when your less collaborative mode or comes in. You become a villain. That's where you're high. It's not my fault, right? I want it my way is the path of the problem, right? And you become a victim because you don't speak about it, and you still say and sulk about it, right? Hey, you need to know how to get away from your child, right? How can you stop sulking? And that's very important. For the path of action is that you need to see and hear. You really need, when there are emotions high, there are multiple stories, many stories that comes on it, and all these stories and all these emotions is only created by you, nobody else, right? You either act on them or you're acted on them, right? That's always. To put a path action in forward, you will have to see and hear, tell a story, okay, of all the possibilities, and get into the facts, complete the story. It is like a puzzle, right? That is where you have to and you have to if you have to retrace your whole path about how your next steps is like, you share, instead of sharing your story, you first share your facts, and then the story related to the facts. Then you always ask for others for paths, right? And you also talk tentatively, and you encourage testing. Now, what is testing? In this, to have testing, most important facts that you have to prepare is you will need to have network. Now, this is where I said the value of network that I've learned through my experience comes in. You need to have network of mentors, you need to have network of coaches, you need to have network of peers, you need to have network of sounding boards. All these network help you to get away from crucial conversation. A few months back, I was, I was in a stage where, I had a very crucial conversation with my manager, right? And the stakes were quite high for me, right? At that point of time, I think what helped me was and my what helped me was the other leaders who are my coaches and mentors, both in India and US, who helped me to pass through these phases, right? And my set of sounding boards, right? My network of sounding boards, whom I could go and say, hey, listen, I just want to just vent it out today. You probably have to listen to me, right? and and also your mentors. All these help me. The moment you have these sounding boards, you try to eliminate the story that is there, and your coaches and mentors help you to build the facts that you have, so that you can build in a path, right? And there is something that you need to always do continuously, and that is called AMPP. That is ask, mirror, paraphrase, and try, right? You should consistently ask for help others, and share. And don't leave in. If you find somebody quiet in the conflict management, go and ask them, hey, how are you feeling about it, right? Most important in the whole conversation, don't feel victimized that you are wrong. Don't feel victimized this is all happening because of you, but agree, build, and come, go and talk to people so that you lead the conversation in more effective and productive manner. And most importantly, create a safe place, right? Don't criticize. Don't ever criticize. That's very important. Always know who does what, and make sure you create an accountability process. And this is what I was saying, conflict management is the process where conflict management is where you move to a process, right, to make sure you have a productive and effective goal, and where you can actually be make sure you're accountable. So when everything is happening, one of the things is very critical during conflict management is managing your energy, right? um, you need to listen. You need to listen to yourself, and that's why you have to have network of sounding boards, and share. There are times you need to take pause. Take a pause. Email that sounds very weird, don't reply immediately. Take a pause. You write the email. Take help for others to read it, right? Talk to your friend. Ask the person to read it, right? And find how you can. There is also when you might be wondering when there's a huge conflict, and I've done this, and this has helped me. When there's a huge conversations, which is a heated conversation, you still can take a pause. All you need to do is, in front of everybody, you can take a pause, is breathe, right? And there's something called as diaphragm breathing, which you could do, where you can just take a pause. And in fact, during this last few minutes, I've taken pauses in multiple places where I have used the breath as my pause, right? And in everything, you need to believe in yourself. Before going into any conversation, it's important how you should meditate and anchor, right? And if time permits, we can do that exercise as well. And be aware about your emotions and manage your emotions. These are very critical aspects for you to manage your energy. And this is important. And last but not the least is know when you have to let go your conflict, right? It could be a conflict with your manager, right? And some of the leads that happens is burnout, emotional well-being being impacted, and lack of no support. For everything, one key thing that comes in is you taking the help. I was saying for you some time back, I was in this crucial conversation with my direct manager, and it was feeling burnt out on day-to-day basis. What helped me is I took the help from my network of sounding board, my network of close acquaintance whom I can share and learn, my mentors and coach, right? They gave me a different perspective how to handle and how to let go. Right? When we start with any conflict management, another thing that we don't let go is, we are very much attached to the results, right? Don't get attached to the results, just go with the flow. You do not control the rest. And then I think it's thought for us, right, from the if you look at our Bhagavad Gita also, right, Krishna as well says, don't get attached to the fruit, right? That the moment you get attached to it, that's where you won't be able to get let go. I want to win this conflict will take you into the spiral of emotions, right? Versus and I want to eliminate this because of my ego also takes into spiral. Versus how do I manage this so that we all get into a win-win situation is where where you would be able to manage the conflict. And ultimately, when everything that you've done and you're still not getting enough support, I think that's where you decide to let go, right? And one of the difficult things that you could do, right? I know we're running out of time. Probably, I'll skip the exercise and I'll pause here about, um, reflect sometimes now that what did we learn, and if you could put it on the chat about what did while you heard about me on how we resolve the conflict and the environment, can you probably share your learnings that you had now? You can put it on your chat window actually. Very good, focus on the problem. Yes, you can always take a pause. And I would really encourage you to, get into the practice of diaphragm breathing. But one of the things that I actually told about meditate and anchor, and I was wanting to take you through that exercise as well, is basically, when you anchor yourself and, just going before into a conflicting meeting, conflicting situation, you can always close your eyes for some time and take 30 seconds and 1 minute and anchor yourself to uh, a particular object or which you are very close to, which gives you a lot of relief, right? And just be there, and that is where you will be able to go and manage your emotion in the tense situation. Yes, when how to let go, taking help when emotional well-being is impacted, very important, right? And you need to create uh, Shrishti, why conflict situations still exist in workplace even with the vast experience of management? Can there be never be a conflict? No. So Shrishti, every workplace will have conflict, right? And as I was saying at the beginning, conflict management is not about eliminating the conflict. Conflict management is about managing the conflict. Why there exists a conflict? Two people on a per same topic will have a different opinions, and that is why you need to learn and you need to listen to the story of others. You need to learn and you need to be able to express yourself, set your expectations clear, and hear to the other person as well, right? All of them is important. And the word conflict managed situation uh, is common. I mean, we do have conflict with our parents, we do have conflict with our spouse, right? And we do have conflict at workplace where it's natural to be there because there is always an opinions that is different. What's important to understand is how do we not get attached to the conflict, but to see how we would manage this conflict, right? That is where, and these are the skills that I spoke about. Listen, the skills that are required, have empathy, make sure you regularly practice, helps you to, traverse through your conflict management. And it needs to have daily practice. Any other questions?
Hi, Preethi. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for such an amazing session. I could see a question up above there. How can we resolve the conflict if the other person is not ready to hear anything or are not ready to talk at all?
Take help, right? Uh, there is a so I was with one of the conflict with one of the peers few years back, right? And this person was very assertive, and I was talking about Thomas Kilman. If you look at the point that the person was very extremely assertive about what he wanted, and he was very focused on what he was wanting, right? And when you get into that position, right, you don't listen to others. That's where your listening skills will drop down. It happens with you, it will happen with other as well, right? And and this is the and how do you convince? It's not about convincing somebody. It is about how do we work together to solve a problem, right? We're not here to convince somebody, right? And that's where you lead into the problem, right? So when there is the person who's not leading, take help, go to your manager and seek help, right? You both could be under the same position, right? So the showing an authoritative by personality becomes easier, right? But at the same time, when there is a leadership, there is this person needs to listen to it, right? So when this happened, I did take the help of my manager to go and ask my manager, telling that here is my problem. And that is where I was talking about dialogue, not to stay quiet, right? And not to fight. That's where the dialogue comes in, where you express and take that help. It is the combination of all the skills that comes in. Of course, my manager had few things to tell about me, which I had accepted and asked for apology as well, because you also get into a defensive mode. But I also learned, and even after he intervened, it did not happen, right? It used to be when I get into a meeting, I used to be in very, the conversation used to be very hard because of the personal conflict, and it used to be always me being the problem. And one of the things that I stopped doing is I'm not the problem, right? So I just didn't go just with my manager, right? I did take my peer support. I had my network of sounding boards. I had my network of I had my coaches and the leaders who can help me out of the situation. Finally, this guy was basically called, and of course this led to a HR ticket, which probably sometimes you need to take the courage to take to the HR ticket as well. It's fair enough, right? But at and the later stage, he actually set a one-on-one with me and said, okay, tell me, I'm here to listen to you, right? Because he was given that direction. Then I told him, and at that point of time, there was a help that was there which enabled that to happen.
Right. Indeed, we all need help at some point of time in our lives, and we need to figure out people and ways to do that. We have another question that hearing the other person's perspectives is good, but pose that if we have another set of opinions or we feel that it is not right and they are not right at their situation, how do we convince them?
So this is where, it's called, we all have heard this term brainstorming.
Yes.
Right. It takes a lot of energy, right? I mean, I'm not saying, and I think that's why the most important factor about managing conflict is managing energy. And we always go through when we are designing an architecture at this point of time, right? I mean, because we're all, I think I have personally gone through, okay, I want to put in my point of view. I want to put in my point. First of all, um, don't get attached to your ideas, right? Don't get attached to other ideas. And
Definitely makes sense.
you need to be assertive. You need to believe in yourself, right? But at the same time, I'm again going back to the model. At the same time, you have to be collaborative. right? And that is where the brainstorming happens. When such things doesn't happen, take help, right? There are conversation, like yesterday I was just telling, I was in a conflict that I went into in the morning. I woke up with this random meeting at my calendar at 7 a.m., right, which basically said you must be there, right? I definitely asked. First thing is, hey, can we move this? And we got that moving. But that move of that calendar did not help much because the conflict. There's a history for that particular person who's leading the conflict, right? And I also have a history of being. I mean, because there is already a conflict, there is uncomfortableness, right? All I did is I picked up the phone, called up my manager, and said, I want you to be here in this meeting,
Right.
right? And he came in, right, because the stakes were very high, right? And it was, and I can't avoid that meeting, so we went. But before that, I prepared my script, right? And when I prepared my script, I made sure I was not sticking to my emotions, but to the facts that is there. And what we did is we brainstormed, right? We brainstormed about, hey, do we agree on what do we want to build? There were certain things of listening. We were telling a story. So there was a thing about you see and you hear, tell your story, you feel and you act. But at the same time, you make sure there is safety condition, mutual purpose, and mutual respect, right? And you need to come into that part of mutual purpose and mutual respect, right? So the way we started is that conversation is done, hey, what's the agenda, what do you expect, right? Instead of saying, hey, while we knew what was the agenda, what is expected out of us, and instead of responding directly to what is it, take a pause, right? Understand what is the other person's purpose, and what is the agenda to expect. Now, while your expectation, you recognize the purpose behind that meeting or behind that ask, then you actually invent mutual purpose together. And this is where I talk about brainstorm of your strategies along with that person and set an expectation. Here is what I am, right? I would not be able, your expectation was for me to give an estimation, and I'm coming first time for this meeting. I need to understand where you're coming from, right? Which led to various other meetings that we wanted, but uh, where we have landed today, from yesterday to today, is a set of meetings that we need to be in, right, to understand the context before we give what needs to happen, right? So you need to move into that crib model, not like cribbing, but a crib model where you can create mutual respect, and you need to state it out. Don't assume. One of the triggers of conflicts is assumption. State it out, right? Get into the dialogue. Hey, here is what I can give you, right? That becomes very important.
Yes, definitely. So, in the interest of time, I'll just take up one quick question. I can see it in the chat. Just a second. Yes. Do you think skip level conversations should be encouraged for conflict situations?
Every time and anytime. One of the things that you should always, if you have to remove the conflict management as part, and in your career journey, here's my advice, and I give this advice to all my directs in my check-ins with them, is to always have a connect with my manager, right? It helps you in multiple ways, right? It helps you. Sometimes it's very difficult. Some people are very good at giving feedback. Some people find it difficult to give your feedback, right? How much of a best version you consider you are in, it is important the other person need to consider that, right? And it is always have to, and you, if you go to your skip level with this conflicting situation, is fine, but I think before that, there's something that I was always calling out, the CPRR, right? Relationship, R for relationship. So ensure that you have that relationship with your skip levels. And also, let's say your manager and his peers, you have your cross functional peers, right? They could be directors, they could be VPs at wherever, whichever level you are. Make sure you have your network, right? Which can kind of help. And that's why you need to have network of mentors, network of sponsors, network of sounding boards, right? Sounding boards help you to test your email, test what you want to speak, listen to your voice, right? And the network of sounding board, if they're in their part of the conversation, they can be your critical feedback givers, right? You can identify one of them. Hey, tell me, how did I speak? Right? So that is there. So do you think a level of conversation should be encouraged at the skip level? I would say always. And I think before that, there's a prep work that's required. Make sure you have that relationship that is built with the skip level, so that it is impactful for you and beneficial for you, right?
Correct, correct. Thanks, awesome. Thanks, Preeti. That was awesome. We loved it. And my major key takeaways from this session is to detecting the root cause of the conflicts, to come up to a resolution, to keep up a healthy environment in and around our workplace, and also to believe in ourselves for managing our emotions and energy. Thank you so much. Your guidance radiates a source of energy within us. Thank you so much, Preeti. Thanks for taking up the session today.
Thank you, Bhavya. It was pleasure connecting with all of you, and thanks for so much of the information and learning, and thanks for sharing. And it was quite an interactive session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks to all our audience as well for all the support. Thank you.